11:01. Let's get started. So good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining Elite CISO's weekly webinar that we do every Thursday, 11 o'clock India time. As you can see, the title is very exciting. How self-learning AI defends 63 moons, right? So we have been doing online events from past almost 2 years now since the lockdown started in India. Every Thursday and Saturday, we do these online webinars. But the most exciting part of today's webinar and why I look forward for such webinars is that you get to hear from a practitioner's perspective. So Neehar, who is a Vice President ICT and CISO for 63 Moons, he will talk about his experience of deployment of Darktrace technology. So it is always great to hear from a practitioner's perspective, right? And we also have Sanjay Aurora joining us from Singapore. He is Senior VP and Managing Director, Asia Pacific and Japan for Darktrace. So Sanjay will talk about Darktrace technology, how AI and the self-learning AI can be used in cybersecurity and how organizations can benefit from these technologies. So that's what Sanjay will focus on. From the agenda perspective, as you see, quick welcome and quiz that we do from 11 o'clock to 11:05. Quiz is coming up just after this, and then I will let you know how the quiz format is. And then 11:05 to 11:50, we will have a joint session of Darktrace and Neehar. And then at the end, around at 11:50, we will do a live Q&A. So during the session also, if you have questions, you can put it on a Q&A tab, and then we have Darktrace representative, those who will answer the questions while we are going through the session. So you don't have to really wait till the end. You can put your questions in the Q&A tab. And then I will share the secret to download your participation certificate. We will have our legacy Wheel of Fortune, and the giveaway today is Apple AirPods. So that's always great to get. I love AirPods. And then we will also open the session or the registration for next week, Saturday as well as Sunday. The registration will be open. And then, yes, session is being recorded. Slides will be available for this session as well. And as everybody who attends our weekly webinar, they know what is going next. But I think there are a couple of new people as well. So I will talk about what is coming next. So next is Stand and Attend Challenge, right? This is the challenge we give in every webinar that we conduct. Why? Because at Elite CISO, we run a very active fitness community, right? And we do a lot of fitness activities like running, jogging, yoga and all. One part of fitness, I believe, is that we should not sit a lot, right? As I always say in every webinar, sitting is new smoking, right? So if you sit, you get foggy brain, you get weak abs, you do not lose weight and all those things. So what we do is we throw this challenge that during this session, during this entire 1 hour, you should stand and attend this session. If you stand, you will have more energy, you will have less pain, and even by getting the great knowledge, while you are getting the great knowledge, you will also leave or lose some calories, right? So that's the added benefit, and you will think sharper. Okay, guys, you will think sharper, and you got to think sharper to participate in the quiz, which is going to come next. Okay, guys. So who is accepting this challenge? If you're accepting, go to the chat window and type yes that you are accepting this challenge. And I see a lot of people typing yes. I love this energy where the chat blinks and goes crazy. So that's great. This challenge is not only for participants, this challenge is for Sanjay and Neehar as well. But I'm not sure how they are placed in terms of laptop setup and doing the presentation. So I will give them that excuse. Okay, guys, so a lot of people are standing, accepted the challenge. So get ready for the quiz. So the quiz is coming up next. It is fastest finger first. The question will come. If you do not know the answer, Google it and type in the chat box as quickly as possible. So first person who puts the right answer will get Amazon voucher of 1,000 rupees. Okay, guys, here comes the first question. So the first question is, which planet has 63 moons? I think everybody asked Neehar this question. What does 63 moons mean? Right, so today you will know. Great, let me see, people are typing answers. I see the right answers coming in. So we will look at the first right answer, which is there. So Jupiter is the right answer. A lot of people have got that, so that's cool. So right answer is Jupiter. Congratulations, guys. Coming up, second question. This is not easy as the first one. It is a little bit difficult. So here it comes. Filling the blanks, right? Is the method of surveillance specifically used for documenting or understanding a subject's habit, right? You deploy artificial intelligence in your network and you understand how laptops and servers are behaving. Based on that, you build your model. And I see a lot of answers are coming in. I will see whether those are right answers or not. I did not see right answer as yet. So I am going to share the right answer. Right answer is pattern of life analysis. Pattern of life analysis is a method of surveillance, right? I'm sure Sanjay will talk about it in more detail. So that's about the quiz. I see 181 people. I will go through the chat and find out the right answers. With this, over to you, Neehar.
Great. Thanks a lot, Vikas. Let's get on the slide. A very good morning to all. I believe most of us are from India. Those from other places, a good afternoon from Singapore. So I'm Neehar Pathare, heading IT and security at 63 Moons Technologies, and been here for a very exciting long 13 years. Prior to that, worked with Bosch for 8 years in data center networking and information security. And thanks again for joining us today for understanding how self-learning AI defends us at 63 Moons. Next. So if you see, 63 Moons was formerly called as Financial Technologies. It started way off in 1990s. That's when we call it the FTIL version 1.0. So we were the pioneers those time to really make in India technology, right, in the early 90s, starting with a broking software. Currently, we operate one of the largest financial distribution network in India. The Odin suite of trading terminals has more than 1 million licenses across 600 cities, towns, villages, and we are number 2 globally by just the licensing volume. Next. Then came a time where we moved into FTL 2.0. That's where we created financial markets, ecosystem ventures across India, Middle East, Africa, and Southeast Asia. That's where we started multi-commodity exchange in Singapore called as Singapore Mercantile Exchange, India's first energy exchange where electricity is traded, and Dubai Gold Commodity Exchange in Dubai. Then came a time, next, is the present version FTI 3.0, where we call it 63 Moons. The name change from only the financial domain, we moved into 12 different verticals, and we thought what we have done the transformation in the financial sector, we were going to do such disruptive transformation in all the other sectors also. So this is the new version derived from the planet Jupiter, which has 63 moons. So the name comes in from the planet, which becomes our customer, and the 63 moons technology is the entire digital ecosystem that we have, which moves around the planet in a complete sync, keeping the customer at the center and giving the right solutions. Next. So just let you know, the flagship product of 63 Moons is Odin, which has been there for last 23 years. This holds 75% to 80% of India's market share, and that's the reason. The reason for showing this slide is you have to understand how critical security for such a large infrastructure that we support for the country is. Next. So we also go by the great governing principles, cybersecurity principles that most of us follow. Govern, protect, detect, and respond. Govern and protect is still what we use. We identify and manage risk. We have the best people to do that. We protect by the latest installation of hardware and software and technologies. But detect and respond, we still felt all the while that it requires more automation, and that's the reason. My next slide. Next. This is how we monitor our security and the network operating center. Because of the prevent and detect, we could not find most of the softwares able to do that. So we have a large NOC runs 24/7. You could see state-of-the-art monitoring software, but has to be with human intervention. It calls in for a lot of manpower to be in this network. Next. So if you see here, these are most of the threats that we face. We did a survey with most of the CISOs and CIOs, and we felt that many feel human error is the greatest out at 37. We also finding that ransomware, phishing, and email fraud is what we were facing. We were getting email, they were getting blocked, some were getting through, and we'll come to that on how we identified and how it got us worried. We are also looking into cloud account compromising, because your Amazon account that your admin uses, if it is compromised, it completely opens up the entire box to everyone. And also seeing supply chain attacks getting more disruptive in nature, just from the pain point of view. So the next most important thing is we feel remote working is still here to stay, and what it was 2 years back, it's going to be a very large percentage. I don't think it's going to be 100%. Still, it was when we started. We did a survey around 95% of our staff on the first month wanted to work from home. They were very happy. But as time progressed, we did it after 6 months, and then this percentage came down to 75. Further, it came down to 50, 55. It has been stable. So we feel that 50 to 60% of staff will still work from home, and that's where you have extended network for you to protect, not only because this becomes your extension of your corporate network where people try to get in. The next thing that because we are a complete development shop, we see over the last several years, DevOps has dramatically transformed the way which software is designed, developed, and delivered. Together with innovations such as agile and continuous integration, DevOps has led to an increasingly rapid and interdisciplinary SDLC, leading to more robust and responsive applications. So what is happening is, with this push towards speed and flexibility, software in some ways become very less secure. Yeah, because of going fast, security goes on a lower term during testing times, and companies rush to release. Security often remains just an afterthought. And we are looking very closely at the next threat which comes in is at 5G. We had monitored this in other countries. Also, it's still here to come, but we think 5G will offer us speeds much greater than what we have ever previously been available. It will allow us more traffic to reach more devices than ever before. This can be used by cyber criminals because they have now a faster way to reach your endpoints, which they did not have over your last mile thin networks. Next. So this is the new security paradigm, which we call social engineering attacks, phishing attacks that we faced. In this pandemic, we saw a lot of these attacks coming up. Social engineering attacks I would like to share is we found that there were attackers or hackers who check your company's LinkedIn profile, check your employees, and they check out who the IT staff is, and they pick up a name. They know the mobile number or a contact person. They call your staff working from home, say this is Amit, a common name calling from IT, and then they would say that we have a new secure password policy implemented, and I'm just calling from IT 62 Moons just to check if your password is okay. Could you let me know your password? I'll tell you if it's okay or not. And we found that this also has started. We were surprised this was not heard in India, but this has started now. Yeah. And with that, we also found some phishing mails which started coming towards our senior topmost management. And although we have a DMARC implemented, we still have the same user ID domain coming into, they know the email addresses of your top management and lower management, middle management, where they send in emails and ask you to do transfer of funds or approve a purchase order, and that was growing continuously. We could block one ID, but it would again have a different header and come in with a different thing. So next. So before deploying Darktrace, we used a suite of traditional security tools, which most of the companies still use, and we continue to benefit from them from ground level control. But this was an eye-opener for the security team, which prompted them to add an additional level of security to the next stack. We did an extensive markets review before checking out. So we found Darktrace was a pioneer in such thing. It was AI based, and we wanted to really test it out. We did a POC with hard hitting numbers. We had 4 different vendors that we tried. A couple of them failed with our numbers. We did a must and a will wish list type of a pattern. We did KT analysis, gave points to a must list more than a wish list. And most of our wish list that we thought was already a must list with Darktrace. We adopted a controlled experiment approach. What it means here is we put directly 200 users directly on a live POC, and then we checked what is the email, what is getting caught, and I'll show you the astonishing results, which is very easy for you to then take it to your management or board. So the deployment stage, as I say, was the difference was evident. Next. So here we see after we deployed, we found a completely change in the implementation time for our team. So our team had a couple of hours more. Earlier, what happens in a typical scenario when it is not autonomous is you detect a threat, you see a traffic growing, you have some alerts with your existing systems. Administrator in a night shift would not take a call if he should block it or not. In a day shift, maybe senior is available. If it's a larger attack, even the manager does not. He goes to the CIO, the IT head, asks for approval. Should we stop it? This will cause so much of disruption in the actual business. And this takes around an hour or two where everything flows in, and it depends on which time of the day you are with this happens. With Darktrace, we found that this number of hours getting reduced in monitoring. The team members could do more POCs, could learn technology and do more easier tasks and had more time to do this. So the best thing that we found about Darktrace when we implemented is it looks into the attack site for 24 hours. It's self-learning capabilities. Any user that felt outside of the normal pattern of life is stopped almost instantly. You can tell what level of security you want. And like we did a gradual approach. We implemented it has a security level of 1:5. We start with 0 and slowly you start upgrading, and it takes a few weeks for it to understand the user behavior. It understands how the user traffic works, how the email pattern is, and then if there is an anomaly, the more it learns, the more better it functions, and then you can slowly start upgrading the scale to a higher security level. And this is how we did for our users. Next. So this is the dashboard that we use to monitor the real-time deployment, and the figures what give us the ROI, you could say. In the last few months that we have implemented, we saw 13,000 emails move to junk, 8,000 action taken on the links in the email, 500 plus action taken on email attachments, delete, archive or content, and we identified suspected data loss emails also. So they have a very nice thing for data loss if any. And this figures keeps changing daily as you have more and more users getting onto the email security part. Next. So consolidating, looking forward after this, what next? I would suggest for most of you all is to consolidate all your security tools. Look for a partner who has all these tools in. Maybe not all. We were using 16 such tools. Yeah, and it becomes a nightmare in case there is an attack or you want to actually coordinate and check which tool does what. And we should consolidate into partners who have more of a Swiss knife that you could have. It's very easy. They talk between each other seamlessly. I also have a holistic company-wide approach. What I mean here is you should be looking at the entire gamut of the company's operation and not only put in a security tool saying an antivirus or IDS would look after this. Have a complete large outlook and look into the repercussions of all small acts, and this is how you do it. We also now use BAS, that's breach and attack simulation. Here what we do is this continuously on a schedule basis does a breach and attack simulation on your network, which helps you and your team be on toes. It does checks in what is the latest patchware going on, how it happens, and keeps you. Very few people do this. They usually once in a year do a VAPT through an external vendor or try and get an outsourced contract, but this is something real and this is picking up. Your own teams can do. And autonomous response technology that we say, it's here to stay. This completely changes the way things work, and we were shocked with the results. Yeah, thanks. Over to you, Sanjay.
Neha, thank you so much. And Vikas, much appreciate the invite to speak at such an engaging. Your opening was fantastic. And Nihar, like I mentioned earlier, hearing from a practitioner is so much more powerful than me talking good about Darktrace, right? I'm paid to do that, but Nihar, the way you have described and deployed, thank you. And thank you for being such a wonderful and visionary customer. Brilliant. So what I'm going to do is to just talk a little bit about how Darktrace was founded, with what founding principles we came to the market, what we've achieved, and what our core fundamental technology and use cases are. This should take about 10 to 12 minutes, and then I'm going to have a fireside chat with Nihar again to go into specifics of the deployment. Next slide, please. So Darktrace was founded by a very interesting combination of mathematicians from Cambridge or UK and a government expert or cybersecurity practitioners from UK government who were at the forefront of securing really complicated, complex networks, mission critical networks, national critical infrastructure. They combined forces to say there has to be a better way, because at that point in time, majority of the industry was continuing on the legacy approach of building more technologies built around rules, built around signatures, built around perimeter defense, built around a fairly retrospective idea, like identifying what's bad, identifying what's good, white labeling. And we knew that the entire community has been on the back foot because this approach wasn't really working. And that's where this whole idea of finding a way to understand from the data, establishing those patterns of life that Vikas mentioned, understanding what's going on in the network, and being able to decipher in an autonomous fashion what needs to be done. That idea was the creation of Darktrace, and you can, as you can see, the numbers speak a successful story. Today we serve more than 5,000 customers across the globe, of all shapes and sizes, of all industry verticals. And we are. I take pride in it. I'm one of the founding members of Asia Pacific. I was employee number 1 here, and I'm really proud to say that we have brought enterprise AI to all kinds of companies, and at a production level, right? This is an AI that works. It is very quickly deployed and very quickly gives you results. So that's what we are today. Validation of our challenging approach came when we went public in April this year, a very successful IPO on the London Stock Exchange. So now we are a listed company that helps us to further invest in our AI capabilities in more areas of cybersecurity. At heart, we are a math and innovation company, very passionate about developing AI in the field of cybersecurity. So that's what Darktrace really is. Next slide, please. As I just mentioned, no industry is immune to cyber attacks and threats, and no industry can avoid using AI right now. I think that's what pretty much it has happened. So we serve customers across all verticals and all sizes, from the largest of the large to the smallest and boutique firms. They can very easily start deploying artificial intelligence on their network, and whatever the new network is, right? Whether it's cloud, whether it's SaaS, whether it's on premise, the combination. That's what we do. Next slide, please. So I will kind of resonate exactly how Neehar mentioned as to what we are seeing, right? So all of us here, and we have a fairly large group, all experts. I think all of us will agree that the complexity of attacks is just continuing to increase, and this is not going to stop. What we saw, in addition to what Neehar mentioned, and Neehar, you talked about ransomware and inside the human era, what we are seeing is a reasonable increase in out of hours activity, i.e., when security practitioners or the teams are not working in office hours, which means, going back to again what Neehar said, autonomous response is becoming absolutely a must-have. It's becoming mandatory. Ransomware continues to make headlines. The difference I'm seeing right now, or we are seeing right now, is not just a simple ransomware attack, but a more evil attack which brings a factory down, which brings the pipeline supply chain down. And I think whether it's intentional or whether it was unintentional, the consequences of ransomware are far beyond the commercial things that we earlier talked about. And the rest you can see again: SaaS account hijacks, banking trojans, and lateral movement. The key here is the level of sophistication will continue to increase. The level of which they can bypass the traditional security controls will continue to become a problem. And that is why a new approach was necessary, is absolutely necessary, and that's today. Next slide, please. So I think, again, this slide I will not speak a lot because you all know this. The retrospective siloed approach of looking at yesterday's attack and protecting your today or tomorrow is not going to work. And unfortunately, that is now pretty much clear. I think the last was SolarWinds attack, if I remember, late last year, and we said that was probably the end of that whole rules and signature era, where still there was a debate, but I think that debate was finally put to rest because it just can't work. The second thing, exactly again what I resonate with what Neehar said: human teams cannot just cope up. You can't hire the number of people that you need to respond real time, and you cannot make these human teams that sharp or that quick to respond to the machine speed attacks, be it a ransomware, be it a data exfiltration, be it whatever you are faced with. The human processes, the way humans work, we take approvals, we take coffee breaks. It is just not a human scalable problem. So the answer lies in AI. The answer lies in self-learning AI, which can understand and establish patterns of life. It can understand how an organization works. But having said that, not all AI is created equal, because today, I'm sure all of us on this group today hear about AI in a very loosely coupled fashion. There is a difference between pure self-learning AI using unsupervised machine learning versus an AI that is being trained using data sets. Because again, I think it's very important to differentiate here about self-learning AI, which continues to learn pure from your organization, rather than you training it towards, and because the moment you start training something, we are again going back to legacy approach. So I would like to differentiate all AIs not created equal. Self-learning AI is fundamental to what we talk about and why we make our customers so successful with our deployments. Next slide, please. So if I can do justice to this slide, I think you will get some value more. I will be very happy that I did a good job in giving some value here. At the center is the Darktrace immune system. This is the core innovation or invention, which is the self-learning AI engine patented. This is able to understand by establishing patterns of life, by understanding from the various inputs that it receives at a very raw level. It's able to determine how people work, how devices work, what kind of data flows, what kind of usual pattern of life for that organization is. And that is on a continuous self-learning basis. And because of that, it is able to spot those early stage threats that other systems cannot catch. Darktrace immune system approach is able to detect very, very quickly. It is able to see, why is Neehar's PC today downloading a file from a rare destination or a rare server it has never done before, and why is Sanjay's PC suddenly doing something which is completely out of character? Why is somebody logging into a cloud application from two countries at the same time? Anything unusual, anything abnormal. And by the way, every time we deploy our in a trial setup, you will find those unusual activities happening. And I'm going to be talking to Neehar a little bit more about it. But that's what happens, right? But that's just not, so the ability to detect based on those unusual activity, the way we do clustering, the way we do a complicated, a pretty complex math engine going there. But essentially, it's able to detect those unknown threats. What it then does is it's able to act as a human analyst, the cyber AI analyst, what the block you are seeing in the middle of the top part. that is able to decipher the meaning of these threats. It is able to decipher if X is happening in this part and Y is going on there, what does it actually mean in terms of what this threat could be? It is able to determine what business decision, what a human analyst would have done. This is able to establish that decision 95% time faster. 95% of time is saved to triage a threat. It is very quickly able to resolve or understand, and not just look at the threat in just one fashion. What it also does is, because obviously it's, AI has the advantage of number crunching, what it is able to do is to really understand that threat, could it have multiple facets, or other devices would be probably behaving a similar way. Very quickly establishes that correlation and immediately tells the right side, which is the autonomous response module or product, which is called Antigena, to take surgical action. So exactly how Neehar mentioned that once you find a threat, you run around to find your supervisor, and then to the CIO, and what could take a couple of hours, the top layer is autonomously able to detect based on unusual activity, is able to make a business decision based on its understanding of what normal is for your company, not what we have told it to do. What the cyber AI analyst is doing is to understand what's normal for your organization and why this unusual activity means this level of risk, and Antigena reacts or responds to neutralize it in seconds. The beauty of Antigena is it will only respond surgically. If I'm working on my laptop and my laptop was establishing a C2C connect, or was trying to do something unusual, it will only stop that activity. I will not even come to know if I was sending my emails or if I was working on legal documents or whatever. I continue to work. And that is the core of Darktrace self-learning: detect, analyze, and investigate and respond. Now, the beauty of this is, as most of the people will agree here, your network is no longer the network, right? Everything, your digital estate today is far more complex. You have a lot more IoT devices. You have, of course, a conventional network. Some companies don't even have that anymore. You have a major transition going towards cloud and SaaS applications. Obviously, with work from home, you have unmanaged devices sometimes who are not coming on VPN. And of course, a very large chunk of threats are coming in from email. So what Darktrace has successfully been able to do is to deploy this entire, detect, investigate, respond into any part of your network with equal ease. And you can start anywhere and you can end anywhere. You can get started with email like 63 Moons, and then you can start deploying it on your network, and you can do it vice versa, depending on where your priorities lie. So that is essentially the Darktrace immune system, and how it detects based on abnormal, how it responds based on abnormal. Next slide, please. So with this, I think what I will do now is to invite Neehar back to unmute himself. And, let's just talk about what I just mentioned and what you mentioned, is to a little bit taking up, because how did you get attracted towards AI for email first, right? I mean, you were a Microsoft shop. What was going on? What was the thought process there?
So how we got attracted or how pulled was we checked the magic quadrant for Gartner, and at that time it didn't have specific category for Darktrace, because I think you're not here or not there, and we checked a lot of different solutions. Then we said did a lot of hunting around and checked which are the best in the market. But final decision was this: the Darktrace technology is pure solution oriented. Yeah, and it actually gives you actual view, and what it drops and what it passes through is what we wanted. Senior management attacks on our network was similar. Working on Microsoft, we have been a complete Microsoft shop to start. We had 13 Exchange servers on-prem earlier, and a couple of years back we migrated to my Office 365. Still have a little bit of hybrid environment with AD and ADFS. And what happens with those 365 is your access everywhere. Earlier it was only office-based email, and now then we have O365. It expands the attack surface and exposes the organization new threat vector. When we went out on the cloud, we were already using the default email security product, that's Exchange Online Protection, but we had to turn to Darktrace to complement this solution with an additional layer of insight because it was not clearly taking care of what threat came in. So I feel it's just an option that comes in. Now you really need a super product to guard you against this. Darktrace uses self-learning AI, as we say, to stop novel and sophisticated threats, which evade your traditional signature-based tools, and that's what we were looking at. So the technology was set up in minimum time frame without affecting the infrastructure, and immediately began learning from scratch, developing a continuously evolving pattern of life is what we call for the organization, enabling it to detect a subtle deviation indicating of attack or not. And with your threat level scale, you could then decide you want higher security or lower for it to learn. So
Right.
this mail, antigena mail, it works with the understanding of the like a human behind the email address, taking targeted action against abnormal and threatening emails, and it continues to give us work without any interruption. So as a value, we see Darktrace, why we see value in it, is knowing that the AI is always there working for you in the backend as good as human. And this enables my team to focus on completely new projects that we are looking at
Right.
now.
Right. I think that's a very common, and thanks for sharing such a wonderful story. That's a very common feedback we receive is that because of cyber AI analyst and generally the ability to automate the processes, the analyst team is now able to focus, has more time at hand to go some other stuff, more sophisticated stuff than just doing, finding a needle in a haystack. I know it's a cliche, but I think that's what it is. So let's talk about a little bit about your experience, right? You did a trial. Would you like to share, did we find something unusual in your network or in your email, and what was that?
So we were, first of all, very impressed by participating in the POV or POC, and we liked it. It was divided, very structured and divided into 4 sessions. So the first week, the antigena performs email activity, baselining and credential mapping to establish the organization and individual patterns. The second week, we got an executive summary report
Right.
from your team. It's a review meeting where a user interface familiarization that they teach you. The third week, again, a executive summary report, 2 review meeting, and another user interface familiarization. And the last week, we had the third report, review meeting, and the deployment sizing discussion. In 4 weeks, you are very clear, the reports are concise enough and they're self-speaking. When you look at the report, it's very easy for you to get into the deployment phase or signing a contract phase.
Right.
So, bottom line is every report contains threatening emails which were skipped by Microsoft EOP.
Right. Very common, very common. But how do you then, justify? Because I find still the challenge comes where people are very easy to fall into that buckets of known product lines, right? Firewall, IPS, IDS, endpoint. How do you justify to the board this adoption of artificial intelligence in a very futuristic fashion, right? So you use the results of the POC, or what else did you do to, get the
So,
CFO and board approval?
so we were already having a problem, right? And the moment we deployed this, as I told you, the way we deployed for 200 users to start with,
Mhm.
the problem stopped. It
Right.
actually stopped. And then when you go with the figures that I showed you over the email, and it comes in my annual CISO report or my yearly report, which shows this is the product, this is what we invested, and this is the return of investment that we
Yeah.
got.
I think the metrics you presented were very powerful and compelling, right? The way it was stopping those threatening
And at
emails.
at the board level, this is what matters, right? The figures mattered, and the threat that you have got off is clearly. You cannot say that we had 10 attacks from China or we had from Russia and we defended it, right? Unless you show that this was an attack, this was a DDoS attack, it went on for this much, this is the bandwidth which stopped it. So the proof is quite clear for you to show, very easy for
Great,
you to
great,
convince.
great. So maybe I'll just take one commercial break here. So this proof of value, which Neehar is talking about to everybody in the audience here, this is available to everybody. It's a very seamless, no commitment from your side, very low investment of time from your side. It's a very professionally run 4-week exercise. You can choose any area, which you can see on the platform slide here. You can choose a cloud, you can choose SaaS apps, you can choose your network or email, where you can see the power of self-learning AI, which within the first couple of weeks will tell you what is happening on your network. Is there anything unusual happening? Gives you a unprecedented visibility. And I'm very proud to again say that it's a very well run, professionally driven process people take advantage of. If you would like to do it, please raise your hand. My team will be very happy to engage. So Neehar, going back to we were chatting about. So you've deployed self-learning AI into your email, which was the biggest threat at that time. Where else do you see this progressing as deploying within your organization?
Oh, that's interesting. The results were so clear that we actually came back to Darktrace to check other products of what they have. We said this is useful. Then we are now, as we talk, we are almost completing the POC for the network part of AI. So we have now deployed it on our devices. It's in a learning stage, and from email was the first part where you have phishing mails which come in. But now, because of a huge network that we have, we would like to protect that also, and we are doing a very thorough POC with that, and we have some promising results. Also because Darktrace virtually accepts every data format.
Right.
Typically works with the core internal network traffic, what I saw, and collected by the following methods, that is port spamming, the organization, existing network equipment, inserting, or you could use it like an inline network tab. If you on that, then you can have your existing repositories of network data. It goes into that and again learns from that. So this, we found that the more you give, the more it learns and
Yeah,
more successful it is. So
that's
as
correct.
we talk, we would be going with the network version also.
That's fantastic to hear. Um, a topic which is becoming quite interesting, and whoever has some ideas around it, please feel free to share. But this AI to be used as an offensive versus defensive, right? So this whole area of defensive AI versus offensive AI, I think it's just a matter of time. And there are 200 experts here, more than 200. But I feel that it's a matter of time when AI will start getting used for offensive purposes as well. And that's where my viewpoint personally is. Obviously, defensive AI has got a little much longer, headway, if you may, or advantage. But essentially, this will become a cyber AI arms race, right? Where organizations will have to deploy AI in all parts of their digital estate to protect themselves against this. What are your thoughts, Neehar?
Oh, very well said, Sanjay. We have been looking at offensive and defensive AI. We saw, if you see in the last 10 years, the number of papers published, yeah, in both these have started going, there's a very large gap which is happening. People are completely now moving, looking at AI differently. We had seen how what happened with the Facebook AI bots, right? They had to shut it down and started talking, and they couldn't control it. And that's the fear that people have about AI. But I think in a more controlled environment, when you make it into a product, I feel this is a very, very promising technology to look at.
Absolutely, absolutely. And on that topic, there was another thought process that was coming in my mind was how will AI be deployed on cloud, right? I mean, cloud journey is again, I think it's a one-way street, right? Everybody has to adopt that. So, what do you think about
Again,
deploying
yeah.
Darktrace and AI into cloud?
I feel that it would require everywhere that your network expands, you need a security system going there, be it on-prem, be it hybrid, or be it on cloud. I feel hybrid clouds are there to stay for a longer time, unless it's a new company and you have a complete different outlook of moving everything on the cloud, and then you have very strong bandwidths and way to look at it. But we are now also testing the network version with whatever loads that we currently have on the cloud too. And we have not got into it, but we feel this would change the entire security outlook for us. If you have the right tool for you to monitor your cloud, then it becomes very comfortable for the BFSI segment.
I think we are almost coming to the final part. So another thought process that I've been hearing, and again as a as a thought leadership piece, that cyber security, we will try our best to remain secure, right? All of the entire ecosystem, but it will happen that there would be bad things that will get into the networks. So the whole idea of using AI in a new way will be to be able to detect early, to respond very quickly, to neutralize very real time basis, to minimize business disruption. I think that's where this thing is going towards, that how do you minimize business disruption despite the fact that attacks will keep coming and the complexity will keep going up.
Absolutely. A job of a CISO or IT head is to have smooth business. Whatever technologies you deploy at the back end, business should be as usual. Any updates, security, new changes,
Exactly.
it should be non-disruptive. Many times a product comes in, you are deploying a product, you have done the POC the right way, you deploy the product, but then it goes wild and you have broadcast storms coming in the network, you do not know where the data is coming in. So we did not find that because we did really hard numbers when it comes to security products on our network. And we did not find that with Darktrace, and we were very happy. That's the reason we have a very extensive POC for a longer duration than what we had for the email, because our network is a very key thing. We run on low latency networks. We have multicast broadcast in our network, so it makes a little things difficult for us.
Excellent. I think we have right on the spot for handing it over to Vikas. Vikas, welcome back, and over to you for taking more Q&A.
Great, sounds good. Thanks, Sanjay. Thanks, Neehar. Excellent insights. So, guys, if you want to ask question, raise your hand, and then we will unmute you. I already see Mr. Sumit has raised hand. So, Sumit, go ahead and ask your question. Michelle, can you unmute Mr. Sumit? Sumit, you should be able to unmute yourself now. Go ahead and ask your question. So before Sumit comes on, let me ask this question, Neehar. How many locations did you deploy this solution? Is it in just one location or multiple location? If multiple location, how seamless was the deployment and integration and centralization?
Actually, it doesn't matter if you have multiple locations or a single location. We had multiple locations right before the lockdown. We shut down 4 of our major metro branch offices after the lockdown, gave away the offices, and everyone's working from home. Even if it's multiple location, for the email factor, it's still the centralized email server.
Right.
So it talks with the server, and the client could be at many different locations. It doesn't matter. It would matter when we do the network part. When we have multiple locations, and then we have to find a structure. But we are currently now headquartered in Mumbai. 95% of our staff is here. That's where we are doing it.
Makes sense. So question to you, Sanjay. Let's say I'm from Taluna, right? We have about 30 offices around the world. How do you propose we deploy? Let's say we pick 20 offices. So how seamless is the deployment and integration?
Yep. I'm not on mute. So yeah, I mean, that's a pretty standard way, right? We'll first do the trial where you will like in the case of 63 Moons, where we will get deployment going in a small environment or whatever you point us towards. And then comes the deployment sizing, right? How do you want us to be integrated with your SIM, with your EDR solution, with other tools that you have? So that's the whole deployment part that comes in. So first, so the journey typically will be, first is the proof of value, where we will bring the self-learning to your network, wherever you point us towards. And then we determine in a mutual way, what is the priority? How do you want to deploy? What kind? And integrations are becoming very, very important now, right? It's almost like it is not just buying shiny tools, but it's also about how does this whole thing make sense for an organization? How does the data flow? And that's what we end up doing, right? That's the deployment conversations. And we have regional, we have global, we have all kinds of deployments, as we had showed earlier.
Perfect. Thanks, Sanjay. Over to you, Sumit. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, my question is related to integration piece. I think there was some bit of presentation said that it's actually a comprehensive suite with which lots of like you actually have product for breach and various other things. Do you also, how do you ensure that our existing investments are also used? Like we have investment in our various fruits which we have done over a period of time. So how do you ensure that that actually is not lost?
Yeah. So I think that's a great question, Sumit, and that is exactly what we are now seeing every time we go and into deployment conversations, especially when it comes to your SOC, when it comes to your ticketing system, when it comes to your SIM applications, right? How does this seamlessly integrate? And the short answer is we seamlessly integrate with the ecosystem. And you might have read or recently we also announced a strategic partnership with Microsoft, where we are talking about a very deep level of integrations with Microsoft as well. Happy to send you the press release, but integration and getting value from your solution set is the conversation to have, and Darktrace is very much in that.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Sounds good. Go ahead, Mr. Amit. Unmute yourself and ask your question. And Michelle, give rights to speak to Mr. Vivekanand and Mr. Vishal as well.
Yeah, hi Sanjay, this is Amit from Darktrace. So my question is related to the architecture of the Darktrace, that how Darktrace secure the network in the architecture now, because most of the organizations are adopting cloud-based web proxies, and then all these internet gateways and everything is getting decentralized against the centralized one, how it was happening earlier. So as much as I know about the architecture of the Darktrace, that is like inline security appliance which just tracks all the traffic, and then but now if all the traffic is not going through a central place, how we can protect the network?
So great question. And yeah, Apurva, go for it.
Okay, so maybe I'll take up that question. So I think this is a very valid question and very relevant considering the kind of that there are now users everywhere and there is data everywhere, and I think there are a lot of deployment strategies which we have around. I think what Sanjay showcased during the platform slide was also exactly this, that no matter where the users or data are, there is a way to deploy and to cover all of that. So for example, say you have your remote users who are working remotely and who are off VPN, there are agents to be covering those remote users. And if they are already connected via VPN, the VPN logs can be ingested as well. Similarly, for the network piece, there is already a network appliance, which by the way, it doesn't sit inline, but it sits passively parallel to the core switch, and then the traffic gets mirrored. Similarly, if you want to extend the coverage, you want to cover your cloud and SaaS environment, that can be done as well with, again, sensors which will be installed in the cloud and SaaS environment. Also, there are connectors, which can be deployed, and ultimately the idea is about capturing the data. So there are ways to be capturing the data from each of the segment of your environment, and then, the ML and AI applies on top of that. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Apurva. So I have just one follow-up question on the client side. So when we talk about the client security, so this is like the sensors will be installed on the clients and that will be protecting, right? So is that work along with the EDR or the antivirus solutions which are already running, or it is something it can replace those and it can take over all the client and security?
I think I get this question all the time and I simply love it. So simple answer is no, it will not replace the EDR solution. There still would be a need of an EDR solution, but what primarily the client sensors would be doing is to provide the network level visibility into what the remote user is trying to do. So, but yes, there is a way to integrate the EDR. Like I think there was one question on the integration aspect also, which I also face a lot of times these days. And so Darktrace, the good part with Darktrace is it has an open architecture and it supports seamless integration with all of your existing security solutions, which could be firewalls, which could be EDRs, which could be VPN, zero trust, which could be SIEM, SOAR, or ticketing platforms. So, for example, the alerts from EDR can be ingested into Darktrace, which will actually trigger the Darktrace Cyber AI analyst to be launching an investigation. So say the EDR is giving an alert that, look, there is some problem with this endpoint. What the Cyber AI analyst will do it, because of the integration, it will also do its own investigation and give you more context around that particular alert or incidents.
Thank you, Apurva. It was helpful.
Yeah.
Thanks, Apurva. I think we can take 2 more questions. So guys, short question and short answer. Vivekanand ji, please go ahead, ask your question.
Hey, thank you, Vikas. Thank you so much. My question to just Mr. Neehar, basically. So as 63 Moon mostly delivering their solution to the financial institutions, how you support the regulatories for the vendor assessment while using a Darktrace? Even we also using the Darktrace, so that's good. But how you guys are managing such kind of audits and kind of compliance with the regulatories, basically?
So we are not directly involved in the compliance with our vendors. For our own group companies and company, we are getting ourselves audited once a year, and some of the standards that we use are certified annually. We are ISO 27000, ISO 20000. When it comes to the BFSI, although our clients are using our software, this part does not affect them. The email part is just for us. It does not affect them on our deployment point.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Last question, Mr. Vishal, go ahead, please. Unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thanks, Vikas. When you talk about the scheduled breach and resolution simulations, right? So what is the impact on the existing system? Does it overload the system when these simulations are happening? Is there a chance of any pilferage on the actual production environment when these simulations are happening?
So Vishal, is that a question to Neehar?
Yeah,
or it was for me? Yeah, it was for Neehar.
No, for Darktrace. Yeah.
Okay. So I think it's not about simulation, but rather, when Sanjay was talking about the autonomous response piece or the antigena, the bottom line is like this, that yes, if there is an attack which is happening, there is some sort of change in behavior, antigena would be responding autonomously. And the good part is, in line with your question, is that the response is very, very surgical, which means it's a very, very targeted response. So say if there are some sort of say there is a fast moving malware which is trying to access a specific file share, and there is this thing which is being visible. So what antigena would be doing is it will only block that particular connection. So what it translates into is basically only the anomalous connections, or only the connections which are creating issues, which are indicative of threat, are blocked, but the business continuity is ensured. So it does not really hamper, it does not really disrupt anything, any of your current operations, but only the anomalous connections are being neutralized.
Great, thanks, Apurva. We are running out of time, but I will ask that one last question that my very good friend Abhishek Bansal had asked on the Q&A. Sanjay, who are your competitors?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and people are definitely looking at embracing AI. I would say we are the pioneers and still very much alone when it comes to self-learning AI. But yes, there are other people in the market who are coming out and working on this space as well. So there are names like Vectra, there are names like ExtraHop. These will be 2 names that come up. But the results and I will not go further, but yeah, people are coming up in the space.
Perfect. Very nice, Sanjay. Really appreciate your very crisp answer on this one. Okay, guys, I will rush the closing. It is 12 o'clock right now. Thanks everyone for joining in. Great session, Sanjay and Neehar. Really appreciate that. So guys, if you want to download your participation certificate like this, what you can do is go to Elite CISO's website, click on events, upcoming events, click on CP certificate link. This will take you to a Google form. Put your email address, put your full name, and the secret to download certificate is JUPITER, Jupiter. Okay. So Jupiter has got 63 moons. Jupiter will also get you your certificate as well. So go ahead, download your certificate. And then once you are here, you can probably register for the next week's session, not next week's. This is on Saturday itself, coming Saturday. We are doing this session with Palo Alto, talking about how do you secure your remote workforce. Okay, guys, so simply click on register now. First 100 people to register will be part of a raffle. And instead of Apple AirPods, we are giving away 2 Philips air purifier and a custom Palo Alto t-shirt for every participant. Okay, guys, so go ahead, register for it. This is on Saturday. On Thursday next week, like we do every Thursday, 11 o'clock, we have this session with Archer, talking about cyber risk maturity, a byte approach, and we will have Sam and Brijesh joining in. Sam is a great speaker. We have hosted him in past as well. So these 2 webinars, these 2 sessions are live. Go ahead, guys, and register for it. And last but not the least, that everyone is kind of waiting for, is the Wheel of Fortune. So top 100 people, or first 100 people who registered are part of this raffle. I will spin it. It will randomly pick one individual, and that individual will get Apple AirPods. Okay, guys, good luck to you. Here I run this. Let's see who the lucky winner is going to be. Mr. Jagmohan Singh from Oman Insurance Company. Mr. Jagmohan, if you are there in the session, go to the chat and type yes that you are there. I don't see a yes coming in. You have to be quick, right? So I will spin it again. I'm going to run it one more time. Let's see. My good friend Bhupender Singh from Delhi chapter. I really hope, Bhupender, you are there. If you are not there, then I will keep the airport otherwise. I don't see anybody. Bhupender is there. Wonderful, wonderful. Congrats, Bhupender. Great. I'm really happy that you won this. Wonderful. Congratulations. I think 12:03, we ran 3 minutes over today. So apologies for that. But thanks everyone for joining in.